Something has undeniably shifted around Keith Urban, and those closest to him feel it just as strongly as the fans watching from afar. For decades, he represented steadiness in country music, dependable, polished, charming, and quietly unbreakable. Yet lately, subtle changes in his life, his behavior, and even his sense of self have sparked questions no one ever imagined asking about him. Keith Urban isn't unraveling, but he also isn't the man the world believed it knew. And the truth behind that transformation carries far more weight than most realize. A journey shaped by talent, relentless pressure, and unresolved wounds. Keith Urban's evolution didn't begin in 2025, nor did it start with recent headlines about his personal life. To understand where he stands now, the story must rewind decades, long before fame, long before addictions nearly claimed him, long before Nicole Kidman stood at the edge of his darkness offering a lifeline he wasn't sure he deserved. His connection to music began almost before memory, at just 4 years old, when his parents placed a ukulele in his hands, a simple gift that would quietly define his entire existence. By 5, a Johnny Cash concert introduced him to the power of the stage, and that single night etched a vision into his mind. He didn't just want to play music, he wanted to live inside it, whatever the cost. Growing up in Brisbane, he was raised in a home where sound filled every corner, and his father's love for country music shaped the atmosphere. At 7, the guitar became an extension of his hands, and by 14, he was already performing in bars, talent shows, anywhere that would allow him under the lights. At 15, he walked away from school entirely, leaving behind a normal teenage life without hesitation. From the very beginning, Keith Urban was driven by urgency, ambition, and the belief that music was not a choice, but a necessity, even if that road led him into darkness he couldn't yet name. His first major rejection arrived early. At 9, he appeared on the Australian talent show Pot of Gold, only to be publicly dismissed by Judge Barnard King, who labeled country music as mediocrity. Keith clung to the single positive word buried in the critique. Intrinsically, a compliment his mother explained meant he was a natural musician, but the sting of rejection never faded. At 16, he tried again on New Faces, performing Air Supply's All Out of Love, and once again walked away without a win. Even then, the need to prove himself had already fused with Keith's identity. By 1991, he released his first album in Australia, and just a year later, he left everything behind for Nashville, a gamble that would eventually reshape his life. But the city was nothing like the dream. He slept in a battered van with his band, The Ranch, playing to nearly empty rooms, facing rejection and isolation, until the band dissolved in 1997. That same environment introduced him to cocaine. As his career quietly rose in the early 2000s, addiction followed close behind. While his albums climbed the charts and he became, though Keith had become one of country music's most celebrated new voices, he still battled private demons. Rehab in 1998 slowed the spiral but didn't heal the loneliness and pressures fame amplified. Everything changed in 2005 when he met Nicole Kidman. They married in June 2006, and for Keith, love felt like a reset. But addiction doesn't yield to romance. Just 4 months in, he relapsed. Nicole noticed, intervened with calm urgency, and drew firm, loving boundaries. That moment became his final crossroads. In October 2006, Keith entered the Betty Ford Center, stepping away from fame to face himself. When he emerged in 2007, sober and humbled, sobriety became the foundation of his life. The years that followed reshaped him. His post-2007 albums reflected healing and reinvention, blending country with pop, rock, and electronic influences, while his lyrics grew more honest and reflective. Television revealed another side of him, a gentle mentor on The Voice Australia and later American Idol, where he became the emotional anchor amid chaos. Fans saw a man who had fallen apart and rebuilt himself, but stability was never permanent. Though sobriety held, the pressures of fame, family, and expectation remained. Keith stayed constantly in motion, albums, tours, residencies, perhaps because stillness had always been dangerous. By 2025, his appearance told a story of survival, discipline, and quiet exhaustion. He had endured addiction, rebuilt his life, and stayed sober for nearly 2 decades. Yet even the strongest foundations can fracture under time and scrutiny. The first signs were subtle but unsettling: tighter interviews, sharper decisions. Then, in January 2025, Keith abruptly fired several longtime band members, some with him for over 25 years, without explanation. For many, it was the clearest signal that something had changed. For nearly 2 decades, Keith and Nicole Kidman had been Hollywood's model couple, raising 2 daughters, supporting each other, and surviving addiction, fame, and scrutiny. To the world, their bond seemed unbreakable. But in 2025, it ended. Reports suggested the split was one-sided. Nicole wanted to fight. Keith wanted out. After 19 years, the relationship that had once saved him quietly fractured, leaving distance and finality in its wake. Around the same time, Keith began altering lyrics in songs written for Nicole. Fans were unsettled. The changes felt deliberate, darker, emotionally detached. Some called it reinvention, others a midlife crisis. Whatever it was, Keith was no longer the man the public thought they knew. The cracks appeared even professionally. While touring and producing, a guarded edge replaced some of his warmth. This wasn't addiction or ego, it was exhaustion, the kind that builds after decades of holding yourself together for everyone else. Keith was unraveling inwardly, and by 2025, private conflict spilled into public view. Fame had always been both a gift and a burden, and constant visibility had become heavy. The warning signs had started years earlier, in 2013, when Nicole was knocked down by a speeding paparazzo. Keith, who wasn't there, responded not with anger, but with a public plea for decency, revealing the toll of constant surveillance. From that moment, he became more guarded, drawing boundaries sharply. A now infamous radio interview, ended abruptly when asked about Nicole's intimate scenes, showed just how thin the line had become between curiosity and intrusion. Keith didn't lecture. He simply drew a boundary so firmly that the room fell silent. That moment defined the Keith fans saw for the next decade: calm, respectful, and protective of his private life. Yet internal pressures grew. Tours, residencies, TV roles, and constant work kept him moving. And by 2025, the strain was clear. Friends noticed subtle changes: withdrawal, impatience, abrupt decisions. Firing longtime band members wasn't just business. It revealed deeper unrest. Keith had rebuilt himself, stayed sober, and survived a ruthless industry. But even resilience has limits. 2025 marked a turning point, and the world was watching to see who would emerge next. If you enjoy classic Hollywood stories, timeless glamour, and legendary stars, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Share your favorite old Hollywood icon in the comments, or tell us who you'd love to see featured next. Turn on notifications so you never miss a new deep dive into Hollywood's golden age.